Hello and welcome back. In my previous videos, we covered concepts and cultural differences that may at first seem a little bit abstract or hard to grasp. Well, today I want to present you something a lot more tangible, a methodology, a tool that successful US businesses, and not just in IT, use to track professional development of employees and conduct performance reviews. This tool was developed by a business consultancy firm that specializes in human behavior and professional growth. It contains 67 competencies that define leadership-focused soft skills and what it takes to be skilled at each and every one of them. In this particular video, I want to describe the value of these competencies. Due to the time limitation and obvious complexity of each of these, I won't be able to go over the actual skills. But I am planning on giving you an idea of the structure and a few examples. In my personal one-to-one trainings, I go over a performance evaluation on these soft skills individually. It actually takes a couple of deep and meaningful meetings in a one-to-one format to discover which ones you need to focus on. I have had many years of training practice with these competencies, starting from my time at Apple, where I have mentored the newcomers, and then later my immediate account management team. And surely, I myself have relied on this encyclopedia of soft skills for my own personal and professional development. You see, my most recent venture into the offshore have given me an opportunity to translate and adapt these skills to the local needs. For example, as a tool in creating custom soft skill focused performance reviews for companies. And while doing that, I have learned that there are quite a few nuances in translating each definition and adapting it to an individual working here in the offshore. Again, all due to immense cultural gaps. So, let's summarize what we've learned so far. The Leadership Competency List is a soft skill dictionary, a very powerful tool that, with a proper guidance of a trained mentor, helps define a set of skills for an individual to focus on in their professional development. Now, let me give you an example of how exactly it can be used. In companies like Apple, where an enormous size and complexity meets a recognizable internal culture, each employee is responsible to represent the values of the entire brand. Customers feel it when they walk in through the doors of an Apple store, which by itself is a product. No matter the country and internal customers or employees, those employees are motivated to do their part every morning, again, no matter which country or role they're in. So how do you achieve and maintain such a consistency? Well, apart from the Steve Jobs legacy and Tim Cook's vision, there's also a very practical approach to it. Each employee fills out and updates a cloud-based document called an Exchange Journal. It's essentially a textbook for self-growth. There, in that journal that's available for both an employee and a direct manager to view and edit, an employee sets 3 main competencies to work on, subjective to his or her self-evaluation of course. And the result of achieving certain milestones are then combined with precise and measurable hard skill results. Hard skill results in this context are, of course, your KPIs, which are just as personal and valuable as your soft skill achievements. That's why both hard and soft skills are treated equal when measuring the overall employee performance and giving a promotion or thinking about a raise. You see, if the first stat reflects the result of an individual's achievement, then the second is a measurement of your teamwork and leadership potential. Hard skills and soft skills, that is. Think of this tool as a reference for you and your mentor or manager. It is a very effective way to build a career map that you can use not only as a tool for your evolution, but also as a way to solidify your achievements when you, say, want to ask for a promotion or when you interview for a position at another company. Now, let's talk about why it's called the leadership competencies list. And in order to get the concept, you first need to understand the true meaning of the word leadership in the context of a successful, modern, and well-established American IT company. Here in the offshore, a definition of a manager and a leader is almost equal. You see, managers get parachuted down from another company or even straight from school without even knowing anything about the very company they're parachuted to. And that's how you get the know-it-alls who are immediately on their first day start implementing their ways, which 99% of the time contradict with even basic logic. You see, that same thing happens when someone goes and gets an MBA just to become a boss. It's an old concept, and one that has proven to be not only inefficient, but even destructive for the workplace. And I'm sure many of you can relate to what I'm talking about here. So as a true leader is not magically made over at the business school, but is molded by a vigorous process of adaptation and readaptation to the actual needs of his or her immediate team. That self-awareness is key to being perceived as a leader of the pack and not some assigned manager with an MBA. Now, that we've covered that up, let's go back to the soft and hard skills. If you look at it from a career perspective, growing professionally doesn't always mean completing more work. Rather, it is taking charge and immense responsibility for your own development as well as development of others. And that last part is particularly important because the one who knows how to develop others is, by default, already a leader. So therefore, this list of 67 competencies is really an instruction on how to become a true leader and not just a manager. Now that we understand the why behind this book, let's talk about the actual list. As I already mentioned, it describes 67 competencies and gives them a grade at which, or as well as a proficiency level at which each competency can be used. And this grade is this: unskilled, skilled, or overskilled, overused. As you can see, they try to aim for the golden mean. Let me give you an example. Being skilled in communication means being able to translate your thoughts in a most efficient and concise manner that is adaptive to the particular situation. Meaning you can overuse this skill by saying too much, over-communicating when everything is already clear. Or, on the other hand, being unskilled, especially here in the offshore, can simply mean incorrectly translating Russian into English. And let me tell you, sometimes things can get lost in translation, so lost that to an American, the whole thing can become laughable, or worse, even offensive. If that's not the goal of your conversation, I suggest you take a few business English classes to have a framework of contextually effective words and expressions. Now, generally speaking, the underuse of this skill, of course, means not being able to communicate at all. Being isolated from the dialogue, not initiating the conversation, not willing to follow the customer's train of thought, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and so on and so on and so on. So, now that you have a general idea of this tool and one example of a competency, communication, now it's time to look a little bit further. Since it's a personal tool for everyone and is closely connected to their role and organization, it's designed to be managed with the help of a mentor. That way you too can focus on your key competencies. Think of it like working with a fitness trainer, but for your brain. Now, let me give you an example of what I've worked on at one point as an AM at Apple. I was focusing on 3 competencies: dealing with ambiguity, technical learning, and humor. So let's start with dealing with ambiguity. This is about how well you work in new and unforeseen circumstances. Basically, whether you crack under pressure. Ambiguity in English means an unexpected turn of events. For example, you planned a client meeting with your team, and then none of them showed up for the actual call. This situation, of course, hijacks your planned flow and forces you to think on the spot. These types of scenarios, I faced very early in my career as an AM. They would have first thrown me off. You see, as an AM, I always relied on various people. They were of all pieces of my puzzle, right? And all, of course, were out of my control. For example, when I needed my client presentation to be complete on time, and sometimes on a very short notice, or my third-party sales channel rep available, or simply my sales team to support me with an updated price quote, I would count on these people to be responsible for their part. Remember, it's always a team sport. Of course, I've had many times when one or even few of those pieces didn't fall into place, and I had to take the situation in my own hands. That's the skill of dealing with ambiguity. Technical learning is a little bit more of a straightforward skill. Just as the name suggests, it's the level of your technical knowledge about the very thing you're talking about. You don't need to know every single detail about it, of course, especially if you're not an engineer assigned to do the task. But you do have to know your resources, who to reach out to with questions. It took me a while to get to know these people, but as a result, I transformed from a sales guy to a consultant. Now, let's quickly move on to the third competency that I worked on at some point, and it is humor. Many of you might be surprised to see humor as one of the competencies here. Yet, trust me, it can be a real challenge to some. For me, it was sometimes difficult to find that balance between my personality, my openness as a person, and professionalism. You see, when you work in a sales environment for a while, you start to understand the saying, people don't buy from companies, they buy from people. And when you want someone to buy from you or take your side in a negotiation, you tend to want to bring out your true personality. For me, that meant using my natural way of taking the pressure off with a bit of humor. That's just how I usually break down the barriers. And as I later realized, humor is a very sensitive thing. So, needless to say, I've had my fair share of awkward moments when something I said was perceived as offensive or even ignorant. Luckily, my immigrant card had always played me out of a difficult situation. Oh well, you live, you learn. So, this was a long one today, but I really wanted you to have a general understanding about this list of leadership competencies because it's a very, very powerful and complex tool. It is not easy to grasp right away. It was actually created by Apple's request and by world's best business consultants, as I mentioned. The main goal for it is to act as a leverage in professional growth and performance evaluation. I hope you found this information useful and are curious to do such an assessment yourself. Like I said, it's a deeply personal tool and can only be efficient with an experienced mentor, one who can help you not only discover the set of, say, 3 skills you need to polish, but also guide you along the process. Otherwise, this whole thing will look to you like an unknown language. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and please share your contact with me if you're interested in getting further with this list. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.